are live in 3, 2, 1, man. Welcome to the Sunday Slam with Nate and Pam, man. We know we're a little late, but guess what? Better late than ever. That's why let's get everything popping. We'll say that again. Welcome to the Sunday Slam with Nate and Pam, man. We are live and popping. We're going to get the music turned down a little bit because, man, we are back. I hate to keep saying that again, but I think we got a double. We got to get these technical difficulties out of here.
Hold on 1 second. Let's handle that.
So we got to do this, and there we are. YouTube. I don't know how to. Maybe we do this.
No, you just need to.
Oh, is that right?
Set that down. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Just
all right.
can't have that up. There we go.
All right. Again, welcome to the Sunday Slam with Nate and Pam. Man, we've had you guys listening to some music, but we are here finally. Nothing great was ever accomplished alone. I am definitely here live and in living color with my amazing wife and co-host. I am IAO CEO, the IAO CEO, and this is my amazing co-host, Ms. Pam McCray, the butterfly herself. Say what's up, Pam.
Absolutely, everybody. I just want to say welcome. We are super excited about the Sunday Slam with Nate and Pam, where we are simply gonna slam the door on mediocrity. So this is where you come on Sundays as we get together, as we talk about different topics, whatever we decide that, you know what, it's time to talk about that thing, that we truly have made a decision that life is truly about slamming the door on mediocrity in order to get from where you are today, in order to go to that next level, right?
Go to the next level. Absolutely, man. We are massively excited right now to be here, man. If you guys don't know, if you haven't been with us before, welcome. But man, we've started a couple of other podcasts before, right? We've had The Grind, which is giving real insight needed daily.
Absolutely.
The IAO Life Pod, which I absolutely loved. I love The Grind as well. But now, man, we were led to do the Sunday Slam. So we're kind of like test driving podcasts, right? So we're gonna figure this thing out here in a moment on how we put all of these together. The content is typically the same, but it's just a name that changes sometimes. So they always say that the players change, not the game. So here we are right here, and the game is still the same. We're still talking about things that are absolutely going to take you to the next level.
Right.
So we're not the type of people that are going to gossip. We're not gossipers.
No,
we're not going to do that. That's not what we do.
right.
But we're going to say things that are most certainly going to move you from level to level, take you from success through failure, through the whole nine, so that you can get where you absolutely positively want to be.
Right.
So today's topic.
What we got?
Today's topic.
Dun, 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 dun.
Always slamming, always hot and on point, man, is good structure, bad habits.
I love
Good
it.
structure, bad habits. So this is the moment when you grab your pen and paper if you want to take some copious notes. This is the moment, man, when you stick with us, you scoot to the edge of your seat and you listen very intently because you don't want to miss anything that we have to say. So again, thank you guys for being here. Man, stay with us to the end. We got some amazing things for you guys today, and hopefully we can give you guys something that's going to move you to the next level. So let's get right into this panel. When I say good structure, bad habits, what does that mean to you?
Well, when I think about good structure, I think of something that has a really good foundation, right? A really good foundation, something in which you could build upon, and it's actually, you're able to create something that's good. However, if you have those bad habits, you don't have the right things on the inside of the structure. If you don't have, like, if let's just take a house, for instance, right. You have to create that foundation for that house to stand, right? If the foundation is not done properly, then that house is going to end up falling down. The roof is going to fall. Everything is going to fall down if the structure is not erected upon that strong foundation, right?
Right.
But on top of it, what ends up happening is, right?
We're gonna. This is the realest show ever, so we're gonna take that part from the other show.
What happened?
What happened was
whole nother situation, y'all. All right, but what happens is now if you don't put the right things on the inside, like inside the walls, if you don't put the right stuff as you now are furnishing the house, what's going to end up happening is that those bad habits that are created or the bad things that are put into it, it eventually is going to fall.
Right.
So you got to create the good habits. You got to put the good things in order for the good to come out of it at the end of the day. So, and I can truly speak to, bad habits.
So can we all?
And now shifting to the mindset of creating those good ones in order to really bring about the results that I always wanted to see.
Okay. Crying a little bit.
Right. I know.
Crying. Get it out. So good structure, bad habits. And let's put a little spirituality on this thing, because we know that we were all created with a good structure. As a matter of fact, we were created with a great structure. The problem comes about when the habits start to come into play and we start creating bad habits. So good structure, bad habits. Let's talk a little bit about some statistics before we get into how all of this happens, right? So there's the release or the break point. The release point is when we go through this, a lot of times we start creating, let's get this thing started. Okay. So we go through this and we start creating these bad habits. And when we create a bad habit, because let me back up a little bit, because the structure that God created is absolutely perfect. Right. And we come out as a little baby and we don't have the muscle composition yet. So, and we don't have the mind, we don't know anything yet. All we have is our spirituality. We know our creator. We know we have, big goals as we start to, grow up and things of that nature and mature some, but things start to happen. Those bad habits start to sneak in as kids. And we've said this time and time again, Pam, people give us carte blanche access to our dreams and they say, you can be anything you want to be. And then all of a sudden they start to tell you that, oh, you can't be anything that you want to be.
Right.
And we kind of let the world, or sometimes people let the world come in and dictate who they are, but the structure is good. And we have to learn the habits to maintain or to build and grow, right? The structure. So what, as Pam said, what do we put inside of this house? When people come inside of the house, are they going to say, oh, this is nice. The outside of the house is nice. And the inside of the house is nice. Everything looks good. So that means we had good decorating habits, right? So to maintain the structure. So they say that I think it's 18 to 254 days to actually form a new habit, right? And that's a wide range.
So that it starts to begin to form at 18.
Anywhere from 18.
About 21 days.
We say 21 days, but they, there are always
really
those overachievers.
Right.
And there's underachievers.
Absolutely.
Right? This is why we're slamming the door on mediocrity, because you need to be an overachiever.
Absolutely.
Because some of you are behind the power curve when it comes to your structure and creating good habits, which feeds into your structure. It takes on average 66 days to break a bad habit.
66 days?
66 days to break a bad habit. This is through studies, right? 66 days.
So it takes about 18, 21 before we start creating a good habit, but yet the bad habits
takes 66 days to break.
So isn't
a bad habit.
Wow.
So if you start doing something that you shouldn't do, then that means, in order to break that, you form that habit, and that depending upon how good you are, there are good habits and there are bad habits. Depending upon how good you are at what you do at creating the habits, then it catches on quicker, right? So I always remember being a type person that says, I don't have an addictive nature, right? Like take cigars for me. I like cigars, but I don't smoke cigars every day.
Right.
It's not a habit. I can either do it or not. It is never like caught on where
it doesn't control you.
Doesn't control me.
Right.
Now, cigarettes are far more addictive.
Right. Absolutely.
Than cigars, because you're actually inhaling the smoke into your body.
Right.
Now, anything that you put into your body is going to be even harder to get rid of.
Hard to get rid of. That's almost
harder
like
to break
sugar.
the habit. Absolutely.
Right?
It's like anything. Yeah, it's like sugar.
Sugar is an addiction, which you don't even realize it, but you look up and it's controlling you because your taste buds need to have it.
Right.
Right. And it's addictive, and it unfortunately affects our bodies in a bad way, so that's a bad habit that we conform to. When you were sitting up here saying how we adopt the things of the world, but we end up conforming to these bad habits because our body was created good. Right. But then we start to put the bad into it, and we create the bad habits that ultimately bring out the bad results.
Right. Absolutely. And the bad habits, they weaken the structure.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
They weaken the structure that God put together. And because we've allowed all of these environmental things to come in, and some of the stuff we didn't author, and we've allowed other people to bring in, but we still have I think that was going to last. We still have the authority to say, I don't want that, or I want that.
That's good.
But if it feels good or tastes good to us, it becomes harder and harder to say no. Right. So we can get into emotions again and talk about how our emotions are very valid in everything that we do, but we have to make sure that we are controlling it. So the structure started off good, and then all of a sudden we started to allow these bad habits to come in. And now it seems almost insurmountable to get over these bad habits because we've created them for so long and they've been ingrained. Now, anything that you see, right? If you constantly look at stuff all the time, it creates a habit also.
Absolutely.
Right. Your visual and what you hear all the time.
Right. Absolutely. That's powerful. And a lot of times it happens without us even knowing.
Absolutely.
It's subliminal, in which you start to not even realize the things that you're looking at, the things that you are listening to are really changing, and you are becoming that thing pretty much. Because
you're becoming controlled by that
you're
thing.
becoming controlled by that
thing,
and studies have shown that too. Even when you think about, let's just take something as simple as the holiday season. When you go into a store and they want you to start to have that mindset of spending more money, they put on holiday cheer. You see,
music,
right? They put on that music that subliminally is telling your mind, "Oh, I'm happy and I need to spend this money today." And you're not really paying attention to the fact of whether you really got that money. You just want to spend it because it's the holiday season time. And so they know that the things that we listen to can ultimately cause us to do the things that they want us to do, and that's visually and
audibly.
Right?
But think about that when you go into anywhere, because it has everything to do with environment as well. What is the environment that you create? Environment and atmosphere all play a part in how addicted you get to something, or even if you get addicted.
Right.
Pam, you're talking about holidays.
Right.
When you walk into a mall, the ambiance, the atmosphere in that mall is for you to spend money.
Absolutely.
You want to be there.
All by design.
All by design. The music and everything.
The music.
Even the lighting in the jewelry store
is
different. When it twinkles, you're like, oh, that diamond is sparkling. But when you get it outside, you're like, where could it sparkle?
Right. And you know what? It even goes back down to the structure.
Right.
And how that mall is even created, and how they are intentional and making sure that on this end, there's an anchor store.
Yes.
Okay. In between, there's going to be some other stores in which, now there's vibrancy as people walk through the malls. In a certain section, you're going to have a desire to eat. Out of one of those fast food restaurants. And it's all by design. The structure of it is by design in order to push us into the direction of what they want us to do.
Right.
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 So, yeah.
So let's talk about what structure is, since we're talking about structure so much, right? The arrangement of and relations between the parts or elements of something complex. Something complex. We are complex individuals. Human beings are complex. We were born complex, but we had structure in our complexity, right? We have so many moving parts on the inside, so many different functions of everything that we do, right? We've got our fingers serve a purpose, even down to the fingernails serve a purpose.
Every cell
length,
in our body,
every cell, the length of your fingernail. If you cut it too short, basically you're going to damage, you're not going to have anything to stop, to grab onto with, and it's going to bleed. If you cut your cuticles too short, the hair on your arms were there so that you can actually feel things crawling on you and you can feel the wind. We talked about the hair in your nose is there to stop different disease and stuff from getting into your nasal passage.
Absolutely.
Right. Your eyelashes are there, not just to bat and look pretty, ladies. They're there to stop anything from getting in your eyes. As soon as you feel it, you close your eyes.
Right.
Everything has a purpose. There's so much complexity to the human body, inside and out.
Right.
And I say this all the time. Women were created one way, men were created another.
Absolutely.
Right. And I always talk about this when we're doing marriage counseling and things of that nature, right? A woman was created the way she was created because God wanted her to be pleasing into the eyes of man, right? So when we look at you, we're hunters, right? We're going to hunt. So when we look at you, when I look at Pam, I want to say, oh, she's beautiful. Look at her hair, look at her eyelashes, look at the way she's got these curves and look at that. And it's appealing to me, right? And when you guys look at a man, you're like, okay, he's strong, he's big, he's stern, he's deliberate, he's on focus, he's on task. And you can say the same thing about a woman as well, right? But everything has a purpose and a structure to it. And the complexity of who we are even more on the inside. That's why we say what you put on the inside is going to manifest itself on the outside.
Always.
Right? So when we think about what a structure is and understanding that we were born with a great structure, we have to realize that it's not that we need to build the structure. It's that we need to maintain and grow the structure.
Right.
It's already there. But we just mess it up sometimes with bad habits.
Right. We do mess it up. And that's called life. Right? We do. We mess it up.
No, let's not call it life. Let's call that decisions.
That's decisions. There you go.
Life decisions.
I like that. Life's decisions. Because you think about a baby, that comes here. That baby is innocent. That baby only learns the habits.
That baby got good credit.
Right.
That baby has potential.
That baby only learns the habits that as parents and the environment, because it's not just the parents, but it's the environment, the world that baby has to grow up in that now really creates their life, but it's through choices too, because if not, you can get a victim mentality, right? So it's through choices because we all have the opportunity to make the right choices in order to replace any of the bad habits that we've allowed ourselves to fall into. So that's the beautiful thing about living, is that it is truly a choice. Just like you said, we can decide, even though I have the bad habit of saying, I don't know, I liked to eat Oreo cookies, right? Right. Even though I had that bad habit, because I did, right? I fell into a bad habit not too long ago, even on this whole health journey. I fell into a bad habit a couple months ago in which I justified mentally that it was okay for me in moderation to put these Oreos in my body, right?
Right.
Then I started to learn more about, the ingredients that was in the Oreo. I already knew it wasn't good, sugar, right? I already knew it was good, but I was like, okay, just 2 or 3, it'll be okay. But then when I learned that it had high fructose corn syrup in it, which is even more detrimental to my body and my goals, guess what? I stopped.
Well, wait, let's stop there, because you talked about a few good components. You said, I knew it was bad. First of all, it was pleasing to me because
Right.
it tastes good. I knew it tastes good.
Pleasing.
And they had already packaged it in this nice packaging.
Absolutely.
Oreo on the side, it was shiny. It was, the cookie looks good on the outside.
You want those cookies with that cream on the inside, you can twist it off. Or,
and they make it double stuff too sometimes.
Right. And that's what I was buying, and the double stuff, right? Until I realized, okay, nobody wanted it, and I didn't want to eat them by myself. Okay. So you're right. So I knew it was bad.
Yeah. So now you knew it was bad, and then you learned out, but you bought it anyway. You did it anyway because it was pleasing to the eye, and you had them before, so you knew that it tastes good, but you knew it was bad for you.
Right.
Now, over a period of time, as you do that, what causes that to happen is a lack of willpower.
That's true.
Your lack of willpower is based on not having I guess enough vision to know, okay, that if I do this, then it's going to set me back. And this is what it's doing on the inside. Maybe it was some knowledge, but we know as human beings that sometimes we know that things are bad for us,
right? But
we do them anyway.
Right. And I believe too that a good portion plays is we start to believe the lies that we tell ourselves. Okay.
Right.
Because that was what I started to do. I started to believe the lie that I was telling myself, that it was okay, for me to eat these in moderation. And pretty much every day. Because I started to eat 2 to 3 at a time, usually 3 at a time every day until I knew better. You see, once you know better, you do better.
So you should,
and that's what you should.
You should do,
right? Once you're,
it doesn't always have that. It doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't always. It doesn't always happen that way. You're right. That's the reason why we bump our heads, we make mistakes, we fall, we get back up, we fail in life, and things of that nature. But this was a time in which I was determined, because I'm determined, and have some pretty hefty health goals that I want to be able to achieve, and body goals. So therefore, I was determined at this point in time that once I got that knowledge, that I needed to stop. So I took that bad habit and turned it into a good habit, because it's been about 2 months, right? About 2 months now since I have not purchased another pack of Oreo cookies.
So now the question is, when it catches on, when you're at that threshold that you don't want to buy any more Oreo cookies.
Right, absolutely.
So now you can go to the store and see them.
I can walk right past them.
Right. So Pam is at about you've probably been there for 30 days now. It took her about 30 days, I would imagine.
Yeah, we've gone on 2 months.
It took me about that same too.
Yeah.
But we got to that point where we will go to the store and not buy them anymore.
Right. Because
knowing that they were bad.
Absolutely. Because if I wasn't in there buying them, I was texting him, be sure to get some Oreos.
Yeah, be sure to get some Oreos. Or she would call me, hey,
be sure to get some Oreos.
You want some Oreos?
We don't have any Oreos.
I'd be like, no, don't bring those here.
Right.
And then she would still bring them and say, well, the kids will eat them. And
they were on sale.
Yeah, they want. But see, these are the excuses that we make. Right. How do we get to a point in our lives where we break these habits? We first have to get to that point, because sometimes we have habits that are so bad that you can't instill other habits until you break this one habit, right? And I said something to you this morning, Pam. I said you can't outwork a bad diet.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's the same thing as this is the same thing. You can't outstructure bad habits.
Right.
If your habits are bad, then some habits you need to change. So this is case in point. If you know that the atmosphere that you are allowing yourself to put yourself in, because you first have to stop saying that people are doing things to you.
Right.
Because you are doing these things to yourself because you're allowing it to happen, one. And two, you're either putting yourself in the atmosphere, or you will not get up and walk out of the atmosphere, right? Or the environment,
right? It's
whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's your choice. You can make the decision on whether or not I want to be here.
Right.
And if you don't, then you're accountable, as Pam said, for what you know.
Right. Absolutely.
If you know, in these cliches we learn, and we kind of apply them to our lives like 10%. Right? When you know better, you do better.
Right.
Well, no, that's not always the case. No, it comes into play when you know better, you don't do better until it hurts you so much that you can't even get past it. Sometimes it just can't be a hurdle. It needs to be an entire wall there. Right? Because you go around the hurdle, you go under the hurdle, you jump over top of it to get to that thing that you want because you created that bad habit.
Right.
But sometimes it gets to a point to where that habit has to become a roadblock. Your resolve has to be a roadblock, and you don't create the roadblocks sometimes.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what the roadblocks are? And since we're talking about, and it can be anything, it can be a mental habit, it can be a physical habit. It could be anything, but sometimes you don't break the habit until you have to.
Right.
Sometimes, and case in point, sometimes you'll go to the doctor and the doctor say, well, you're going to have to cut back on sugar. Okay, doc, I got to cut back on sugar, but I like sugar. Right? But you still have to cut back. Well, you mean I got to cut back on sugar? This is how this works.
Right.
What do you mean I got to cut back on sugar? I'm not cutting back on sugar. And you'd be like, well, if you don't cut back on sugar, right, you got this or that's going to happen.
Right.
Right. You'd be like, what do you mean this or that's going to happen? And you say, well, in 2 months,
right,
if you don't do this or if you don't do that, this may happen.
Right.
All of a sudden, ding, 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 ding. All of the railroad arms come down.
Right.
The railroad arms come down. Everything kind of like pops into place, and you're like, oh my gosh, there is a train coming.
Right.
Right. You're like, let me get off the tracks now. Yep. But now that's the wall that goes up, and now you can't get past it, or better yet, you can get past it, but you know now that the circumstances of me getting past it, what's gonna happen is this. The circumstances of my actions have by far outweighed the advantages that I was getting before.
Right.
It tastes good, right? It feels good. And now if I'm gonna die from doing it, let me stop doing it now.
Right.
So that's when we stop the bad habits. Sometimes it's too little too late.
Right. Because sometimes that doesn't even do it. Sometimes unfortunately, most people in life are reactive instead of being proactive.
Right.
So it's unfortunate that typically a lot of times that habit may not change just simply from having the knowledge of what it can do.
Right.
And instead it doesn't change until now it has affected us, and now we are forced to change, and that's reactive instead of being proactive, when all we had to do was realize that this is a bad habit. Let's change these bad habits in order to now put the good in, so that now we can create better habits, good habits, and now our structure is being put back into
strengthening that structure.
You're strengthening this structure
because it's always there
instead of tearing it down.
Yeah, sometimes it gets weak. So we're building it back up. So what these things are, you've got different types of people. The first person is the person that says, I'm not changing. I don't care what they say. Right. I've always, and I'm using these examples, right? I'm using these examples. You could use a minimal example if you want, but I've always smoked cigarettes, and now I'm going to always smoke cigarettes because I've always done it. I don't care what the doctor says. I'm always going to do it. I've always drank liquor 7 days a week. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to enjoy myself. And we throw that cliche in there that says, I got to die of something.
Right.
So it may as well be cigarettes, may as well be alcohol. I got to do something. Right. And then we throw that cliche in there that says, well, we all got to leave here at some point in time. I may as well enjoy myself while I'm here. So all of these cliches are what we call limiting cliches.
Right. Absolutely.
They limit your ability to strengthen your structure, because with the understanding that a structure needs to be strengthened in order to survive the storm.
Absolutely.
Life is the storm.
Maintenance.
Yeah. The maintenance of that. Now, and that's good that you get into the maintenance piece, because the maintenance of that structure means that the structure has been built the way it needs to be built.
Absolutely.
Right. Sometimes we can't maintain a structure that's so weak that it can't withstand the wind. So when you have a structure in place, take a tornado comes through, hurricane, whatever part of the world you're in, you can make that determination. But if you know you're in a wooden house, then you're probably going to be the person that's packing up and rolling out of there and praying for your house.
Absolutely.
I hope my house survives. You know it's not going to survive because it's raggedy already.
Right.
Right. So you pray. But at the end of the day, if you have a structure that you know is built with concrete, it has good footers, it's into the ground, the right length, even more. Your structure is solid. Now you're like, okay, I got good siding up on it. Everything is awesome. The roof is good. It's not just got raggedy shingles on it. It has a good roof. It's solid. When you hear a storm, what are you going to do? You're just going to make sure your windows are closed.
Absolutely.
Right. You're going to close your storm shutters, and you're going to sit in there and you're going to chill.
Right.
Because now all you have to do is maintain.
Right.
You have to make sure that your storm shutters work every day. And we talk about storm shutters because we lived in Florida. So in Florida, you have to have storm shutters on your house.
Absolutely.
Right. Either storm shutters, or you got to have the metal ones that lay on the side of your house that you put up when there is a storm. You have to hire somebody to do that. Right. But you got good storm shutters. They work. You know that your foundation is good. There's no termites in it. You're maintaining it. How are you doing this? You're getting the maintenance of all of this stuff. So that's maintaining.
That's the daily things that you have to do, right? Every single day, in order to make sure that structure, it remains solid. So it's the habits that we end up creating. It's the things that we need to do on a personal level, on a business level, on a mindset level, on a physical level. These are all the things that we have to do in order to really create that strong structure. And if we're not doing it daily, what happens is that structure starts to break down.
Right.
And it breaks down from the things that we're doing, basically, or not doing, because it can work either way. And, when there are those bad habits, it's not going to be that foundation that creates the type of growth, the type of environment that is necessary in order to thrive at the things that we put our hands to.
Right. So in a nutshell, our habits protect our structure. Habits protect good habits.
Good habits.
Protect
bad
our
habits tear that structure down.
Bad habits tear that structure down.
Right.
So what are some examples of good habits? Good habits are anything that perpetuates the structure. The longevity of the structure is what we're looking for. If you have good habits, then your structure is able to withstand life decisions, as Pam said, right? You're not going to make all the right choices.
No, nobody does.
You're not going to make all right. You're going to make some bad decisions, but if you make some bad decisions, your structure, since it's built with good habits, it can withstand, right? So one bad decision will tear some people down,
right?
And they can't recover. It's because the structure is so bad. So now we talk about structure and habits all the time. We translate that into our mental capacity,
right?
Some people are what I call mental midgets. The least little thing throws them off, and they're like, woe is me, and they give up. But then you have the people that understand that I need to, listen to personal development. I need to create good habits so that I have something to pull out of the bag when something happens. What you mean? They just knocked the tree down in my backyard? Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? No. Good habits have told you I'm prepared. I see that tree. I know when it falls, I'm going to get somebody to come over here, cut that thing up and haul it away. Right. We put this stuff inside of us, the knowledge of how to do things so that when it happens, we know how. You can't be prepared for everything, of course.
No, but preparation is key.
Preparation is key.
And I think that when you're creating these good habits, it's allowing you to prepare for the things that are going to come your way. So you got to be in the mindset of, saying, let me prepare for the good times. Let me prepare for the bad times, or the challenging times, we should say. And, it's through all of this, when you have that mindset of preparation, and you have that mindset of the daily to-dos and everything that needs to happen in order for that structure to be solid, in order for you to continue to be able to put the good things in and to get the good things out. That preparation is necessary in everything that we do. And a lot of times it can be a hindsight situation. And if hindsight is happening all the time, right? 2020, right? If it's right, hindsight after the fact, then that means that something has to change. Something has to be done about the habits that have been created in order to not allow ourselves to be in a position where we're always seeing stuff after the fact. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. And now you're looking back, and you can't dwell on the things that have happened. You got to learn how to move forward. But why keep bumping your head into the same wall when you could just fix the habits and create the right structure, and now build upon that thing in order to begin to create the things that we want to see.
Sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And we have to get into the empathy aspect of what all of this is. Some people just don't know how.
Right.
Pam and I were there.
Right.
We were waiting on somebody to come and rescue us, and from our bad thinking, or as we call it in the military, our stinking thinking. Right. It's a matter of you understanding the situation that you're in and saying, okay, not just focusing on the problem and the situation, but figuring out, how did I get here?
Right.
How did this happen? I feel like that to me a song. How did you get here? Nobody's supposed to be here. I've cried my... Anyway, that's what I felt like. You feel like that sometimes, right?
Right.
But we were harmonizing pretty good together there, right? All right. So we got a scene. We gotta have a scene portion of the show, I guess.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You're gonna be seen. But anyway, you're like, how did I get here? How did this happen?
Right.
And you have to really make that determination. This is okay. I got here because of X, Y, and Z. And I need to apply A, B, and C. Because I look at the X, Y, and Z, because the X, Y, and Z is the end of the alphabet, and that's the last three letters of the alphabet. What should be happening is applying the A, B, and C, so the X, Y, and Z doesn't happen.
There you go.
Right?
That's
so now you got to go back and apply the A, B, C.
Absolutely.
Right? Because now you know. So now the foundation helps you understand, how do I fight this and so that it doesn't ever happen again. Right. So now this structure is put in place, and this foundation is here, and now we can punch anything that we have, because now we know how, because we're not going to be able to head everything off. We're gonna activate those proactive muscles instead of the reactive muscles, with the understanding that sometimes I'm going to have to be reactive, but I'm going to be better at being reactive when 95% of my life is proactive.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's the key.
Now my structure is strong. It may take a hit here and there, but it's absolutely positively going to stand and bounce back. And I think that is the key. And the nuggets, the golden nuggets that you guys should get out of this is that nobody is perfect.
Right.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody goes through trials and tribulations.
Right.
The key is, what are you learning while you're in those trials and tribulations? Are you growing in the fire, or are you staying in the fire because you're not growing and learning, right? Right. And I think that's the important part here, because there is nobody, absolutely nobody. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how fancy you think you are. I don't care what kind of house you're in, what kind of car you drive. I don't care how beautiful you are.
Right.
I don't care how long your hair is. I don't care about any of that. Everybody, listen to me, y'all. Everybody goes through stuff.
Right.
Everybody. There is no respect to person when it comes to pain. I promise you. So when you're going through pain, you have to, when you're looking at the average person, I want y'all to get this, when you look at the average person and this person is walking around, I promise you, every single one of them have something going on in their life that you probably don't know about, that's probably affecting them, but it hasn't gotten bad enough yet for you to see it on the outside. Right. And what they're doing is they're working on it on the inside so that it doesn't manifest itself to the outside.
Right.
And that's happened a lot. When you see homeless people, when you see people that are out on the road and they're begging for money and this and that, this happened. And it could easily be anybody that you're seeing from day to day.
Right.
So don't think that anybody has it all together. And more importantly, stop being concerned about that. Be concerned about you.
That's the key.
All right. I'm not telling you to be a selfish person that never takes anybody into consideration. But what I am telling you is that you have to make your cup overflow first before you can start allowing other people to take stuff from you. Mm-hmm. Right. Because now if they're taking what's in your cup, then you're eventually going to be hungry just like them.
You're thirsty, right?
But if you're giving from what's overflowing from your cup, right? Then understand, hear my heart here, guys. I'm not saying don't help people, because people do need help. And if you're in the position to help people and you still have what you need and you can help more, cool. Right. And
there's a lot of ways to help people too.
It's a lot of ways to help people. It's not just financially, right? So when you're doing that, just make sure that, you're building yourself up, because you're called to be the person that can help more than just one person. You're called to be the person that elevates. And now, not only are you, it's not all about the money, as Pam said, it's about when you elevate, now more people can see you, because people that elevate get such a bad rap. It's like, people are going to see you going through what you go through, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I knew, you're fighting, you're struggling, boom, 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 and I'm here for you, and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you start to come out of it and you start to elevate, they were like, who they think they are.
Right.
Oh my God, look at them trying to be bougie. Now you got brand new. You don't talk to nobody no more. You don't do this. No, you're just still on that level down there. And I'm trying to show you how to move here. I'm not
let people know it's possible.
Let people know it's possible.
Right. It really is a choice. Like, you can pull yourself up from wherever you are. You can go higher from wherever you are, but it truly is a choice. And it's unfortunate, but people can't get mad because you make a decision to go higher.
Right.
And to choose to do something different in order to bring about the results that you want to see happen in your life, instead of settling for what life has thrown you. That's really what it boils down to.
And take us out of here, Pam. Talk a little bit about, talk a little bit about mediocrity, which is another word for average, because we want everybody to understand, what we're doing on this show. Each topic is going to be a topic that is intended to either confirm something that you are going through, that you need to do, or that you need to stop doing, or is going to be something that gives you a new direction. And that's what this show is all about. It's about new direction. It's about reinvention. It's about, becoming the person that you need to become to get where you are called to be. So, talk to everybody a little bit about, what it means, Pam, to be above average and how important that is.
Absolutely. Well, just as we're closing out the Sunday Slam with Nate and Pam, where we are every single time that we go live, we're going to slam the door on mediocrity. I think about mediocrity and average, and that is truly the place where, unfortunately, many people settle and allow themselves to be inside of a comfort zone instead of really breaking out of it in order to understand and to really take the gifts and the talents that we have to the next level. You see, being average means just enough. Being average means just getting by. Being average means accepting the things that life throws at every single one of us, on a daily basis, with the challenges, and saying that, what, I just have to accept this, realize that this is my life, and not do anything about it. But being above average and slamming the door on mediocrity is that person who says, what, I'm not going to settle for what life is throwing at me. Instead, I realize that the greater the challenge, the greater the victory, that you have everything on the inside of you in order to go out and to soar to new levels, in order to become and to operate in the purpose, your God-given purpose that God has given you, because of the fact that you decide to not remain the same and you decide to become the person that you were created to be. Slam that door on mediocrity, because none of us were created to be mediocre. So let's slam that door.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, live your truth. Be the person that you were called to be. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. When it's your turn to win and soar and elevate, absolutely nobody can stop you from doing that, man.
No.
God bless. Thank you guys for being a part of this podcast with Nate and Pam McCray, guys. We are definitely slamming the door on mediocrity, and we'll see you guys the next time. All right. God bless y'all, man. Until next time, we'll see you guys next Sunday. Have a blessed rest of your week.
Absolutely. See y'all later.